This came out Wednesday. And it says that Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster Project. So we hadn't really gotten into Pathfinder a lot here. We've looked at Pathfinder quite a bit. We went over their core rulebook quite a bit. Excuse me, their basic set. We dug into the core rulebook a little bit, but really we went into their starter set box because we really love the starter set box and how to play 2nd edition. We went into that into a lot of detail. Then we looked at the game mastery guide. But Pathfinder just announced that it's remastering its books. So today we are pleased to reveal the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remaster Project, 4 new hardcover rule books that offer a fresh entry point into the Pathfinder 2nd Edition role-playing game. So I know people have been talking about this. So what is our opinion here in the Geekverse on this? The first 2 books, the Pathfinder Player Core and Pathfinder GM Core, released this November, with Pathfinder Monster Core, March 2024, and Pathfinder Player Core 2, July 2024. So November and then March, so that's a year away for Monster Core, and then much more than a year away for Pathfinder Player Core 2, completing the remastered presentation of Pathfinder's core rules. These new rulebooks are compatible with existing Pathfinder 2nd Edition products. So I did watch some stuff with Eric Mona yesterday, and he was really emphasizing that we're not doing another edition. And I still need to reach out to him to try to be on the show. I'd really like to have Eric Mona on the show. I've been reaching out to people for Table Talk, and like I said, it's either feast or famine when I get to interview people. Either you have a bunch of people or you can't get anybody. But he's on the list to reach out to. I bet he would do it. Incorporating comprehensive errata and rules updates, as well as some of the best additions from later books into new, easy-to-access volumes with streamlined presentations inspired by years of player feedback. That doesn't sound bad to me. Now, of course, when new core rule books come out, they're like, oh my God, everybody's got to rebuy them. But they're trying to make sure that I sounded like to say that we are not doing a new edition. Your current books will work just fine. But we're revising and updating. So it says this year saw a huge explosion of new Pathfinder players. Remastered books like Pathfinder Player Core and Pathfinder GM Core improve upon the presentation of our popular Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules, remixing 4 years of updates and refinements to make this game easier to learn and more fun to play. And of course, a major part of Pathfinder has been the fact that we just have one gigantic tome. That's the core rules. There is the game mastery guide. I've got the game mastery guide, which is what we looked at. And then also I do have the advanced players guide over there. Traditionally, Pathfinder has just been in this gigantic book right here. But Eric was saying this was intimidating people, that the people who were coming over from 5th edition they're used to seeing a player's guide and a game master's guide. And then all of a sudden here is Pathfinder 2, and he was saying that it was intimidating to people. So this is going back to the Dungeons and Dragons inspired setup with a player's guide and a game master's guide and then a bestiary. But that's if people are leaving 5th edition and then moving over to Pathfinder, I guess in some way you accommodate the people. And now wait, what kind of audience have we got here? Maybe they should be more accommodated because we want to make sure that they stick in Pathfinder 2nd edition. James says, I'll buy these. Having errata at hand is always nice. Oh, the Sable Phoenix says the campaign setting of Glorantha is where the Hero Quest RPG setting takes place. I did not know that. I've never heard of that. Now, I guess my original Hero Quest, that took place in the Warhammer world because it was a collaboration between, who was it? Of course, it's Avalon Hill now, who is owned by Hasbro. But it was who was bought out? Did it actually say, was it Parker or Milton Bradley? It was Milton Bradley. It was a collaboration between Milton Bradley and Games Workshop. So Games Workshop, I always thought of Hero Quest taking place in the Warhammer world. Maybe that's changed now that it's published exclusively by Avalon Hill. Just wondering if the board game is the same or how they got away with using the same name. So yeah, Hero Quest now is like the same rules. It's basically a re-release of the old game, but they had to change up everything that was related to the Warhammer world. But yeah, having errata at hand is always nice. I don't think it'll be just the errata, but that would be my justification for the purpose. Yeah, now see, I was hearing them talk about that as well, Zero Theory. One thing I heard is they are scrubbing alignments. I can only say about time. Yeah, see, that part doesn't bother me. Now, that came up because that seems like something they're having to remove because of something about the OGL and something like that. So they're purging a few things like that, but like I don't typically use that in things that I would be creating anyway. So getting rid of alignment doesn't really bother. Yeah, Milton Bradley. Thank you, Mike. Milton Bradley in Games Workshop. So Eric Mona was addressing that. The new core rulebooks will also serve as a foundation. Let's see, wait a minute. I think it was up here. In time, Pathfinder Player Core, GM Core, Pathfinder Monster Core, and Pathfinder Player Core 2 will replace the Pathfinder Core Rulebook, Game Mastery Guide, Bestiary, and Advanced Player's Guide. Now, of course, we knew they're going to, like, it makes sense to print these under the license. It makes sense that if you're going to go to all the trouble of creating a new book and you're going to have to put a new license in the back anyway, that you might as well do something other than just put the license in the back. That makes sense to me. That all of a sudden, okay, if your hand got forced and you're going to have to go back and change things and you don't want to print, you don't want to do new printings of those books, more continue print. I mean, I guess they did some new printings of the book because they all sold out. But going forward, I don't think they want to do printings of those books with the OGL in them. So it makes sense to go ahead and completely redo them, I think. See, one good thing about Paizo, they fully support a website called Archive of Nethys, so you don't have to get the rule books. Zero Theory says it's a nice way to make a strong break from D&D rules. I have not personally seen their pocket-sized books. Actually, I may have seen them, but I don't really remember them. But people kept asking, will there be pocket-sized books and things like that? Those sound fun. I might have to see them. Let's see. Existing Pathfinder players should be assured that the core rule system remain the same, and the overwhelming majority of the rules themselves will not change. Your existing books are still valid. The new formatted books consolidate key information in a unified place. For example, Pathfinder Player Core will collect all the important rules for each of its featured classes in one volume, rather than spreading out key information between the core rulebook and the Advanced Player's Guide. The new core rulebook, and see, to me, in general, after a certain amount of time, and I'm not sure what like the different publication dates are on this, but after a certain amount of time, consolidation like that, I think, is generally justified. The new core rulebook will also serve as a foundation for our new publishing partners transitioning the game away from the open game license that caused so much controversy earlier this year to the more stable and reliable Orc license, which is currently being finalized with the help of hundreds of independent game publishers. So this will be the tome for reference on that. So it says, okay, so this transition will result in a few minor modifications to the Pathfinder 2nd Edition system, notably the removal of alignment. I'm not exactly sure why that's required, but like I said, it also doesn't bother me. And a small number of nostalgic creatures, spells, and magic items exclusive to the OGL. So it sounds like they're not interested in trying to license anything from 5th edition through the Creative Commons. That seems like what's happened here. That, yeah, okay, so they could have access to the 5th edition SRD through Creative Commons. Arguably, they still have it through the OGL, but why not just completely break? So there are apparently some things that they do not want to use, that they don't feel like they have complete access to. And so they want to put it all under the Orc license. That seems like the situation. These elements remain part of the corpus of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition rules for those who still want them and are compatible with the new remastered rules, but will not appear in future Pathfinder releases. Let's see. Is this a new edition of Pathfinder? No. In fact, this kind of reminds me of this over here. The 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons 2nd edition handbook. This was like the revised edition. Like I said, this is the one that I always played out of. But in the foreword here to this book over here, it says, forward, before we even start, I want to make sure everyone understands one very important fact. This is not AD&D 3rd edition in gigantic lettering, bold right here. This was like the revised edition of AD&D, revised 2nd edition of AD&D. And it almost sounds to me like this revision, the remastering of Pathfinder 2nd edition, is a lot like what happened here. It says, there, everyone can breathe again. Rest assured that this is still the same version of the AD&D game that your friends, classmates, and business partners have been playing for years. Yes, there are some small and subtle changes to the rules, but you would have to read the whole book very carefully and have a tremendous memory to find them. The changes of this sort are minor corrections and clarifications we make every time we reprint, and we've reprinted both the Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide more than 10 times since 1989. So what's changed? Obviously, the books look different. We were awfully proud of them when they were released in 1989, but the world doesn't stand still anymore. So we decided that after 6 years, it was time for a new book. And as long as AD&D was getting a new suit of clothes, we elected to let the seams out a bit too. Both books are a lot bigger, 25% more pages in the PHB, 33% more in the DMG. And we use them up just looking good. Instead, inside you'll find bigger illustrations, lots more color, and pages that are easy to read. Making the switch turned out to be a lot more work than many of us had expected, but it was well worth the effort. Since the second edition was released, AD&D game has grown in ways that we never anticipated. So products change, but our goals stay the same. Publish things that make fantasy gamers explain. That's what I was looking for. And we do it in the same reason that you play, because it's fun. So this was 1995. So it reminded me of that paragraph that was in the revised AD&D books as far as what's going on here. So are my existing second edition books obsolete? No. I didn't know there was a Pathfinder rulebook subscription, but apparently they are part of that. Will the new Pathfinder second edition remaster books have special editions? Yes, and they just announced those. So this right here with the pocket edition, yes, there will be pocket editions. And then Eric was also talking about that. So I guess we're going to see some new Starfinder. We went over the Starfinder box here, also on the channel. But will these changes impact the Starfinder role-playing game? Not yet, because Starfinder is very much still third edition D&D. And then, let's see. Pocket-sized books. Oh, yeah. So are you... There is something about the PDF. So the old they're not, but see, I can completely understand that they're not going to redo the old PDFs. There'll be new PDFs. I understand that. So yes, there are actually, so here are the new covers. This was released yesterday at Gamma. Of course, Gamma is going on. Gamma is the trade show. I've been out there a couple of times. Out the trade show, and it says this morning at the annual Gamma Expo Game Industry Trade Show, Paizo publisher Eric Mona unveiled the sketches of the just announced Pathfinder Player Core and Pathfinder GM Core hardcovers to hobby game retailers and distributors. I think this is interesting. We will update the product pages for the new books when the final full color pieces arrive in the coming weeks, but Pathfinder artist Wayne Reynolds' illustrations have us so excited that we couldn't wait to show them off to you in all their glory. Receiving a new cover sketch from Wayne is one of the true highlights of life behind the scenes at Paizo. Whenever they arrive, the creative staff gathers around to marvel at their beauty and pick out the little fun details Wayne always adds above and beyond the simple descriptions we provided him. Wayne Reynolds has been one of the most important contributors to Pathfinder since the very beginning, and it's a pity that the pencil sketches are not often seen outside of this building. So we decided it was time to change, not just by showing off his sketches here on the blog, but also on your gaming tables. So there are going to be special edition covers of the pencil art that are coming out just to friendly local gaming stores. So for the first 4 months of their release, these Pathfinder sketch covered versions of the new core rulebook will be available exclusively at hobby retailers worldwide. We will not be offering these editions online or in bookstore. We will not be offering these editions to online or bookstore retailers ever. We also do not intend to reprint these editions beyond our modest initial print run. We'll retain a small number to sell on Paizo.com after the 120-day exclusivity period for folks who do not have access to a local game store. But those special editions are intended to support your local game store partners who have been such a big part of Pathfinder's success. So they do look pretty cool. I'm most interested to see what I guess we understand the style of art and what they will look like when they're all painted up. But they look interesting. They look like interesting books. What do you think you will be able to? You think you'll pick those up?